PSG have knocked Liverpool out of the Champions League after yet another impressive display, and in this video we're going to be discussing how they did it. We're going to be looking at the tactics involved that helped PSG carve out yet another brilliant performance against the best side that England have to offer. This PSG side are special, of that I am very sure. They're a top side with no real star individuals. In fact, all of the players are very good, and that means that you're able to do something like this. This is the defensive approach that PSG had when Liverpool were in possession. Imagine if Van Dijk or Konate had the ball, and PSG operated with something of a man-mark system, especially in midfield. In fact, it was this midfield trio that really set the tempo for the way that PSG want to defend against this dominant, impressive Liverpool side. This actual approach really enhances and emphasizes individual 1v1 duels, and we're immediately looking towards the duel between Nuno Mendes and Mohamed Salah, between Hakimi and Diaz, and it was the PSG player more often than not that ended up coming out on top, and it was this midfield battle that really lent the tie into PSG's favour. João Neves getting the better of McAllister on occasion, Fabian Ruiz getting the better of Ryan Gravenberch, and Vitinha onto Szoboszlai. It was then about the aggression that PSG had from their defensive line that allowed them to then recycle the ball back. This forced Alisson into making those direct long passes over to Diaz and Salah, and where normally they would take the ball down, drive forwards with it, they found themselves really hampered when coming up against these impressive, aggressive PSG defenders. You had the likes of Marquinhos and Pacho being able to be aggressive up against Jota, up against Szoboszlai, and it meant that Liverpool had barely any time. The real aggression throughout this PSG side meant that turnovers were very much apparent, and because of the quickness and pace and the ability for them to hit Liverpool on the transition, it meant that PSG always had a threat going forwards. So when the ball was turned over, Liverpool always had to be wary. The aggression that Liverpool had was met by PSG, and even more so, and that was probably one of the most impressive things about this tie so far. This aggression and defensive setup gave PSG a platform to really build from, and it allowed moments like this to happen. Take a look at McAllister on the ball currently. He's going to be pressured by João Neves right here, but notice also the positioning of Fabian Ruiz. Look how close these three are together as well. João Neves, Fabian Ruiz and Vitinha. They were never too far apart from each other, and that enabled them to not only have a foothold when it came to possession, but also the aggression that they wanted to have in the centre of the park, focusing on that middle, allowing for their fullbacks and wide players to do their jobs on the sides, not giving themselves too much to do, and it meant that they were able to have a really good aggressive press like this. As we see McAllister have the ball, he tries to turn and he realises that he's in a heap of danger. As he attempts to try and wriggle out of it, it gets met by aggression from João Neves, from Fabian Ruiz, who's able to come in and take the ball, and then it's about transitioning that moment over through into their forward players. Look at the likes of Kvaratskhelia, look at the likes of Dembele, look at the space between the Liverpool defenders. Konate is obviously pressed forwards into this area, and you've got a whole heap of space for Ousmane Dembele to then be able to spin in beyond and then take that space that Liverpool have given with their extremely high line. It was a really good defensive approach by PSG, and the aggression was shown, and then giving themselves the opportunity to then make a good play and dart forwards. It gets played into Ousmane Dembele, who has a huge opportunity with a 1v1 against Alisson. He overruns it and it doesn't get converted, but it just gives you an example of the great setup and defensive organisation and structure that PSG had that enabled them to transition in an instant. And this is where the contrast comes in. This is where the difference comes in. The difference in approach between PSG and Liverpool, I believe, was the reason why PSG were able to get the upper hand, especially in this tie, and why I believe they deserve to go through. And it's not to say that Liverpool were particularly bad in this game, far from it. When you have two teams of such a high calibre, it's going to be the very slim margins that defines what puts one side through over the other, and for me, this was it. So what have we got here? We've got Liverpool Liverpool, making sure that they're trying to press PSG in an aggressive man-marking system manner, very similar to the way that PSG were doing against Liverpool. This is your Liverpool front four. Of course, remember, they're in their 4-2-4, the way Arne Slot and Liverpool like to be defensively aggressive in this particular example. So you've got your 4, you've got your 2, and you've got your 4. In this particular example, this is in the build-up to PSG's goal, and we're going to be discussing what PSG did so well to be able to get themselves out of this defensive press situation that Liverpool have themselves in, to be able to convert themselves to go forwards and then get that goal. So we've got Liverpool set up in that defensive aggression position, pressing up onto PSG, making sure they're trying to get their high turnovers. But what you've got is Pacho on the ball currently, but let's take a moment to analyse the midfield. Gravenberch onto Neves, McAllister onto Ruiz, and Szoboszlai onto Vitinha. Now, the rotation in this PSG side is absolutely key, and one thing we're going to see first is Vitinha make this run. Now, what this does is open up a channel of space within the centre of the park. So as we move these players and as Szoboszlai follows, it creates a little bit of space. Kvaratskhelia is going to drop, and that brings Trent Alexander-Arnold. All of this happens within an instant, remember, and it's so very impressive. Fabian Ruiz drops and McAllister follows. The same goes for João Neves, and what ends up happening is instead of having a 3v3 battle, you've got a 4v3 because Ousmane Dembélé drops into this pocket of space. So once the ball gets passed over to Nuno Mendes, he's got a free pass into Dembélé in acres of space because he's dropped from that striking role. Again, all of this happens in an instant, and it's so very impressive to see. So as Dembélé picks the ball up, it enables him to spin, and then you've got runs from Barcola, then you've got runs from Vitinha and Ousmane Dembélé to then go onto that defensive line from Liverpool. It's so very impressive, and again, like I said, it happens in an instant, but that is the difference in quality, in composure, and the main difference that separated both of these sides. As I mentioned earlier, this leads to PSG's goal, the only goal that was scored in normal time in the tie, and this is how it happened. So we mentioned Ousmane Dembélé dropping into this space. Now notice his positioning right here, and look how much space he's in, dropping behind Ryan Gravenberch because he's been following onto João Neves. You've also got Alexis McAllister, who's been pressurising Fabian Ruiz. And where is your third midfielder? Well, Vitinha's made a selfless run forwards to take away Dominik Szoboszlai. Those are your three midfielders for Liverpool and for PSG, but the difference is Ousmane Dembélé dropping into this pocket of space right here, and it enables him to then spin, turn, and go onto this Liverpool back four. Of course, Szoboszlai is not a right back because that's Trent who's here, who's been pressurising Kvaratskhelia. As Dembélé moves forwards, you're then looking towards the run of Bradley Barcola. As he moves forwards, you're going to have a great pass from Dembélé through, carving through that Liverpool defensive line, and then it's about how Barcola is able to really utilise that moment and then drive forwards. It gives a better angle here to see the pass that Dembélé is able to play, but it also gives a better highlight onto the amount of space that Dembélé actually had to be able to drop into and play that pass. So well done from PSG, and within an instant, which is why it was so difficult for Liverpool to try and defend against. Barcola drives forwards as that Dembélé pass goes through, and then it's real danger time for Liverpool. It's about making sure you're in those defensive situations, but because of the pace of the play, Barcola is then able to play a pass into a Dembélé, and it's difficult for Liverpool to defend. Now, it's such a good pass that it means, because of Dembele's pace, he's able to get there, but Alisson has to come for it because it's really, really dangerous. Alisson has to try and get there. Konate has to also try to intercept, and that's where the big mistake happens. I don't think it's Konate's fault at all. He tries to get there, and it's really unfortunate, but Dembélé manages to stay on his feet and tap the ball in. Again, a sliver of a difference between both sides, but the difference that made PSG just that little bit better in this tie. I thought they dominated generally overall for both ties, and they thoroughly deserve to go through. But of course, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on Liverpool and PSG, and who do you think is going to be winning the Champions League? Is it going to be PSG? Let me know. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.